So I am going to make two eye related videos today, and the first video is going to be about pre-reg year. If you're an optometry student coming up to finishing your university in your final year and you've got a pre-reg position and you're going to start in the summer coming, then this video is for you. I'm not going to lie, your pre-reg is probably the hardest year of your entire life, but it is only 1 year and I promise you it's like totally worth it. Your pre-reg is the year where you are going to develop your skills as an optometrist, develop your skills through communication, develop your knowledge and your theory, learn how to deal with customers, make people understand their prescriptions, and it's your year of being like a sponge and just soaking up as much information as you possibly can. Use your supervisor like to your advantage. Like your supervisor there is there to support you and coach you and mentor you. They're not necessarily there to teach you theory because you should have learnt that at university, but in terms of your practical skills, like your supervisor will be there to show you the best techniques when you're testing somebody's eyes. One thing I want to say, when I came out of university, I learnt obviously the theory of everything that I was doing, but practically we've probably seen about 8. I went to Aston University in Birmingham and we've probably seen about 8 patients, or like 8 real patients in our 3rd year, which in the grand scheme of things, that is like absolutely nothing. But you've learned the techniques, you've learned what you're looking for. All you've got to do is just completely perfect your techniques and perfect the way that you choose to test eyes. When I came out of university, like I said, I learnt the theory of everything I was doing. I knew procedures I had to follow in order to do an eye test, but you learn in your pre-reg that you have to link everything together and make it like a seamless eye test. With regards to actually doing the refraction, like you know how to do a refraction, you learn how to do the prescription, but you've also got to then remember you've got a patient sitting with you, somebody that might not know anything about eyes, somebody that might be really nervous. You've got to learn to do all of that at the same time. And yes, it's nerve-wracking because you have somebody sitting in with you. And yes, it's nerve-wracking because you think, am I going to know everything? What if they ask me a question? What if I don't know the answer to the question? But yeah, I mean, that's something that every single pre-reg goes through. And honestly, your pre-reg is the year where you're going to learn how to deal with all of that stuff. I finished pre-reg a few years ago and I qualified in 2008. And I'm still learning. Like, there's still things that I see every day and sometimes I don't know what they are and sometimes I need to refer, and you're never going to learn everything. You're never going to see everything, but you have to just try and make mental notes and write down things that you haven't seen, remember what you did. Once you see something like retinal detachment or something, you're not going to forget the symptoms, you're not going to forget what the patient told you, and you're going to use that to your advantage for the next patient that comes in with the same symptoms. You're going to know what you're looking for. With regards to pre-reg, the reason it's the hardest year of your life is because you are working full-time, you are on minimum wage, and you have exams and constant assessments throughout the whole year. It was slightly different when I did my pre-reg because I did a slightly older version of what you guys are doing now, but I know that you have an initial assessment where they might check your contact lens removal and insertion, and then they do like another visit where they check theory of stuff and they watch you do an eye test and maybe something else, and then you have some practical stuff that you need to do, and your examiner will come and visit you sort of every 3 months until they have passed you on your stage 1. Your stage 2 is the next part of it, where you have a different examiner that comes in and watches you do an eye test on a completely different patient that they bring with them, and then you are good to go for your OSCEs. I think with OSCEs, it's one of those things where if you've had enough practice during doing tests and you've had enough time with your supervisor and you've had enough time to kind of go through, your OSCEs, in my opinion, should be fairly straightforward because potentially it's things that you have been doing over the whole of the year. They don't ask you anything that, in my opinion, you shouldn't know. They don't ask you anything that you shouldn't have come across. And what they really want to know is that you are competent to test somebody's eyes and you are safe to practice. They don't want to know that you're going to be the best optician in the world and you know everything about every disease. They want to know that in a situation where you might be a bit unsure, you are making the right decision and you are doing the best thing by the patient. And remember that when you go into your exam, like, the examiners are not there to fail you. Remember also, it's a lot of pressure on the supervisor as well, because if you are one of these people that's a little bit overconfident and you're not checking things regularly with your supervisor, remember your supervisor is putting like complete trust in you that you are going to make the right decisions and you are going to do the right thing. So if you're not sure about something, your supervisor is the person to go and ask. At the beginning I was doing like maybe 2 eye tests in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and then gradually I was cutting the time down for my pre-reg. So she would start by doing 2 tests in the morning, 2 tests in the afternoon, and they were like an hour and a half tests each, so that she had enough time to do everything she wanted to do. At the end of the test, I would go in, I would check her ophthalmoscopy, I would check a refraction and just make sure that I was happy with everything. After a couple of months of her seeing things that I thought she should have been seeing and me being confident with her refractions, I kind of left her to it, and she would come and get me if there was a situation. At the end of every test, she would come to me and I would sign the forms off for her, and she would give me like a rundown of exactly what she'd found, what she'd done, and what she was recommending to the patient. And always remember, the most important thing is that you have to relate the patient's symptoms to your findings at the end of the test. If somebody comes in and tells you they're getting headaches, there is no point doing the whole eye test and not referring back to their headaches afterwards, because it is so important that you fix the problem, or at least give the patient some idea of what you are thinking and what you're going to do and what you're going to do to help the problem that they've come in with. If you don't know what's causing their headaches, there is nothing wrong with saying to the patient, right, I've done all the checks I need to do, this is fine, the results for this are fine, this is fine, everything with the back of the eyes is fine. I would then advise you to go and see your GP about the headaches. Then as an optometrist, you're not expected to learn everything about what every type of headache means. You're not a GP, you're not a neurologist, you are just there to make sure that you have done what you need to do and advise the patient accordingly. I have a lot of friends that are now like have been qualified as long as me, like from 2008, and they are quite bored of optometry and they are doing their own things. I still absolutely love what I do, and I'm really lucky because I still love testing, I still love seeing my patients, I still love doing contact lens assessments, but I feel like it's one of those jobs where you make of it what you make of it. And if you are a people person, it's something that you should be able to consistently do for many years. If you find it too repetitive, you can always go into hospital optometry, you can always specialise in contact lenses, you can always locum so you get a little bit of diversity, you can do domiciliary work so you go around to people's houses, specialise in certain things at the hospital, you could be a glaucoma specialist, you know, there are lots of other things that you can do if you find the day-to-day practices quite tedious. I don't really know what else to cover, because in terms of the actual pre-reg, so what I would do is I would see patients for that day, and no doubt at the beginning you're going to come across things that you don't know, you're going to come across medication that you've never heard of, you're going to come across symptoms that you never heard of. I would always write down anything odd that I'd noticed. So patient with a random medication that I'd never heard of, I would go home, I would learn the side effects of that medication, and you have to do it consistently. This is one of those things where you can't leave your revision to the last minute. You are constantly learning as you go along, and you have to find a way to remember what you're learning. So somebody comes in with symptoms and you think, I've got no idea what that is. Someone comes in with a syndrome that they have, like Stevens-Johnson syndrome. If you don't know what it is, you need to go and revise it, because the next patient that comes along that has it, you're going to be on the ball, you're going to know what's going on, and it's going to be a lot easier. And like I said, it's going to make the test a little bit more seamless. In terms of the actual order of the sight test, I tend to have a very set order that I do everything in. When I first qualified, we were taught to do ophthalmoscopy right at the end. I think your general fundus check needs to be done near the beginning of your sight test so that you can kind of predict any problems with refraction that you might have. I'm not going to go against your supervisor. If your supervisor's told you to do it a different way, then that's fine, but I have always taught my pre-reggers that they must do ophthalmoscopy near the beginning of the test before they do the refraction, because it just makes sense. If they've got cataracts and the vision is only 615, you're not going to know that if you start your refraction. So you're going to spend ages with these plus 0.25 and minus 0.25 changes, and actually it's not going to make any difference to the patient. If you do your ophthalmoscopy and your ret, obviously beforehand, you're going to see any potential problems that the patient might have with their VAs, and then you can just stick pinhole in a little bit earlier and just check. The other thing is, like, you need to constantly be revising. You need to go home every night, you need to look at your notes. I used to say to my pre-reg quite regularly, like, if there's anything you want me to go through with you, we'll stay after work, we'll do half an hour and we'll go through stuff. I'm really lucky with my trainees. Like, my trainees generally didn't really need me for anything. They would call me in if they needed some help, and that was basically as I kind of left them to it. But I was there if they needed me. Some people I think work differently. Some people need their supervisor a little bit more. I was the kind of pre-reg that asked a lot of questions. I was constantly harassing my supervisor and asking them questions like the whole time. And if you're like that, then I think that's absolutely fine. But you need to get on with your supervisor. You need to have a good relationship with your supervisor in order to be on that level where you can just go and ask them questions without feeling a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not really sure what else to say in terms of pre-reg, apart from the fact that you need to study as you go along. It is a tough year, but I promise you it's kind of completely worth it in the end. And it's so achievable if you just get your head down, do what you need to do. Do take breaks with your revision. Do go out and enjoy yourself. Do go on holiday during the year. Like, don't just kind of, you know, it's not impossible because so many people do it. But you just need to be quite organised with your work. You need to make sure that you see the right number of people that you're supposed to be seeing. You need to make sure that you're organised with your record. Record keeping is the most important thing. If your records are like really sparse and you don't write anything, according to the College of Optometrists, if you haven't written something, you basically haven't done it. Just remember that when it comes to your record keeping, because that is what is going to be scrutinised when you have your examiner. That is what I did with my pre-reg. I kind of scrutinised her records, and if she hadn't written it, it meant she hadn't done it. Like I said, I've been really lucky with my trainees. Like, they've been fantastic, they've been amazing, and they've all worked really, really hard. So yeah, if you have any questions about pre-reg, optometry, career stuff, like, let me know. I have done a video on general, like, my pathway with optometry and how I got there, why I decided I wanted to do optometry and so forth. But I hope this is a little bit more helpful to those of you that are about to start your pre-reg year, wherever that may be. And some of you may be tied into a contract afterwards, and that's fine, that's what most places do. But yeah, just enjoy it, learn as much as you can, and just, if you love that people interaction, you're going to be absolutely fine. Remember, you got through the degree, you did like the 3-year studying bit, so you are like set and ready to go to test the public, but you're just going to learn a hell of a lot as you go along. You know, you're going to be able to refine your techniques for Volk, you're going to be able to refine your ophthalmoscopy, you'll be able to do a refraction much quicker, and just work on getting your testing times down, because in real life you only have 20 to 25 minutes to do an eye test. Just talk to your supervisors, talk to your colleagues. If you have any other optoms in the practice where you work, ask some questions. I'm sure they're not going to mind. Don't be worried also to ask if you could sit in with your supervisor. My pre-regist sat in with me a couple of times as well, and it kind of helped them see the flow of which order I would do things in and how I would generally, you know, lay out my site test. I think most supervisors would be absolutely fine with that anyway. But yeah, enjoy it, learn lots, be the best you can be, and like, good luck with everything. Any questions, just leave them in the comments below or just message me on Twitter or Instagram. Thank you very much. Bye bye, and I'll see you soon.